to become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, was just congratulating me, letting me know it was time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad Pod, episode 69.
Woo!
Nice.
What?
Yeah, man.
Sick-minded. We have some sick-minded fans if you're laughing.
Oh, no, I didn't mean for that to loop right there. I mean, yeah, or just, funny number. It's all good.
What's funny about it, John?
I don't know. It's a funny number. That one and 420. We got funny numbers out of here.
Yeah, I suppose.
So, I'm sorry. I just had the most childish episode intro ever, and I can't figure out how to transition into football talk. But that shouldn't be the case, because not only do we have a crazy week of NFL football, but the real talk of the town, and I'm just going to hop straight into it, is the college football playoff. So I'm in the bucket of Florida State got completely screwed. Mark, and he hasn't elaborated really, is in the bucket of Florida State did not get screwed. And I'm of the opinion best you can do is go undefeated in a Power 5 conference. And I think that Florida State did that. I think they beat convincingly some good opponents. And I think that Alabama just snuck away in because you need to have an SEC team in. I'm pretty conflicted on this. Mark, I'd like to give you the floor for a moment to tell me why I shouldn't feel like Florida State got screwed.
Yeah, let me swing you. To this side. And this, in my opinion, is the logical side. It's not necessarily the right thing, but it's the thing that needed to happen. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at what the committee is trying to do, and they're trying to put the four best teams, the four teams that actually have a chance of competing and winning the national championship, right? You want to get those four top teams in. And I think somehow, some way they actually did that. Now, I will lead off and say that we predicted chaos and that somebody was going to get screwed, and we were right. People got screwed. You could even make the argument that Georgia got more screwed than Florida State.
I'd argue. I would 100% argue that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they were number one going into championship weekend. And again, you get punished for competing for a conference championship when it seems like Ohio State sit at home with that one loss. And there's always a chance one of those teams slides back in after not competing for a national championship. The committee's not been consistent how they've done this in the 14 playoffs the last few years. If you're a Florida State fan, I completely understand the frustration. At the end of the day, I'll ask you this question, John. Does Florida State do what they did, 13-0, win a national championship, if Jordan Travis is not on their roster?
I don't know, man. And you mentioned his name. Like, he literally said he wished he broke his leg earlier so that Florida State...
I don't know if he does wish that, because they would not have... I don't think they would have finished undefeated had he broke his leg earlier.
I don't know, man. I mean, he's a stud 100%, but I think the team around him is really freaking good and balanced too. And so I don't want to credit all of Florida State's success to his level of play in its entirety. Now, with that being said, I look at this board. I don't see them beating Bama. I don't see them beating Michigan. Maybe Washington, maybe Texas. That's how I look at this board right now.
Without Jordan Travis, I think each of these teams wins by 2 scores or more against Florida State right now. And that's, I think, what the committee probably looked at. It's tough to say because you never know, right? Like, maybe they're just a really good defensive team, and maybe they fill the holes of missing out Jordan Travis. Maybe they fill that in other ways, and maybe they just play a really good football game and they're really well coached and they steal a game from one of these teams, right? Because you never know. And that's the argument that these Florida State fans and people that are upset about it are making, and that's a fair argument. But if you look at the eye test, and I hate the word eye test because it's so biased, right? It's always an opinion. The fact is the fact. They were 13-0. They won the ACC, and they played 2 SEC opponents and won both of those games, right? So like that's the argument. But they are such a different team without Jordan Travis. and make no ifs about it. If Jordan Travis were playing, they'd be in this and they'd probably be the 2 seed. So
Right.
that's the thing though. They're not the same team without that guy. Any of these 4 teams that got in, you take Quinn Ewers out, you take Michael Penix out, you take Milrow out, or you take JJ out. Those teams aren't the same teams either, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think Washington gets in, even if let's say Washington won, but Penix tore his ACL in that game.
You don't
I
think
don't think they would.
Washington's
I
in
don't
this
think
bracket?
Washington gets in. I think you see Georgia in or Florida State in instead, right?
Yeah,
Same.
and
goes
I
for
think
Milrow.
that's fair, and I think Georgia got screwed too because they're getting punished, like you said, for playing inside of a conference championship game, losing to a very, very good team in crunch time. And so it's tough. Now, I have slightly less sympathy for Georgia because they controlled their own destiny and they lost, right? So it's tough. I don't get me wrong. I think the quarterback aspect of it is 100% a massive factor in the decision-making process. And I guess the part that pisses me off is the fact that this is up to the opinions of the committee and conjecture, and there's a bunch of nuance at play because that's not how the NFL works, right? It's records and that's it. It doesn't matter if every single person playing for the Eagles died the next day. If they finished the season, with a playoff record, they would get a playoff record. They would get a playoff spot. But it's not at all how this 4-team playoff bracket in college has worked, and it is frustrating. It stinks. I think.
I will say, John, that you got to be careful with the NFL playoff comparison because the NFL talent drop off is nowhere near college.
And
if you're in the NFL, you're in the NFL. You are one of the very best. Even if you're a practice squad player, you're still a very good football player, and you're ready to play in games. Obviously, you're not as good as the starter, but it's not the drop off. You're seeing Browning and some of these backup quarterbacks win games. Why? Because they're still really good football players that just you think are bad because they're bench riders in the NFL. But if Florida State's backup is a huge drop off from a guy like Jordan Travis who's gonna play on Sundays. That is a very big different thing that and that's not a fair comparison. People keep saying, well, what if the NFL did that? What if the NFL just decided to put the Bills in, even though because nobody wants to watch the Steelers play a playoff game? That's not how it works in the NFL because it's more competitive and the talent equals out better and the coaches equal out better. But in college, man, you take a team's best player, a Heisman candidate, off their roster and it does change what they're capable of doing in a big way. And I just think, the average point, I think Kirk Herbstreit has said the same thing. He's had the same voice as me through this entire process, right? Get the 4 best in right now. Who are the 4 best right now? Get those teams in. That's what it should be. I think the committee did that. And obviously they left some good football teams out in order to do that. And it sucks because the expanded playoff should already be a thing. We've been saying that since before this happened. We called it 2 weeks ago when we said we can't wait for this to happen, and the committee's going to take a bunch of shit because that's exactly what they should be getting is a bunch of shit, right? Because they created this problem.
Right.
But I do think they got it right. And I will say the biggest winner of this weekend, Texas,
100%.
because Texas was not, in my opinion, not going to get in, right, without Alabama winning. Not only did they get in, but they got the 3 seed. And they got a more favorable matchup because of what happened with Michigan going to 1.
And I'll say this much, I just have to be honest with myself. The concept of Nick Saban having a month to put together a defensive game plan is absolutely terrifying.
It's very scary.
I that is scary as shit.
Nick Saban has not lost many college football playoff games. He hasn't lost many college football games at Bama to begin with, but he hasn't lost many playoff games. And Michigan, they pride themselves on pushing people around and being more physical. And they have been more physical than everybody they've played this year, but they haven't played an SEC opponent like this. And, you saw Michigan's reaction when they saw who they got paired with to play in this game. It didn't look exactly like they were feeling great about it. You know what I mean? I think that video is a little bit overblown, but I do think this, right? If I was a Michigan player, I would definitely not be as stoked about Bama as I would be Washington or Texas. I frankly think... Or Florida State.
Yeah, you could manhandle any of those teams, frankly. And I think Bama, and you're right. And that is me casually admitting the fact that this committee has put in the four best teams, because I wouldn't flinch at basically anybody except Bama or Georgia. I think those are maybe the only two teams in all of college football that have a legitimate chance to beat Michigan. And even then, right, all of that is to also suggest, though, that as long as Michigan comes out and has, the same run game and the same defense that they did against Ohio State, I do think they win this game against Bama. But Bama gives me more pause than basically any other matchup that you could possibly put together.
It is a lot easier to say they'll be able to run the ball and do that stuff against Bama than it is to actually do it, right? And like you said, John, a month of Nick Saban and
scary.
I mean, those guys are going to be prepared to play, right? And Michigan's offense, if we're being honest, isn't the most complex offense in the world. They win because they're more physical and they're better up front, and they have a good quarterback and two really good running backs. That's how they win games, right? The scheme isn't going to confuse Nick Saban. He's going to have that figured out. Right. So I will say I think the winner of that game wins the national championship game by a pretty good margin. Like, I think we're going to see the national championship is being played in that 1-4 game. Like that, in my opinion, the winner of that is probably going to be a 7 or more point favorite in the next game.
I'd also not to put a ton of weight on a guard, but I think Zinter being gone definitely is a huge loss, because he's I would argue he probably would be the first interior offensive lineman taken in the draft this coming year, and now you don't know what's going to happen with him. I think he does have an extra year of eligibility if he wants to stay. I don't know if that's going to work out, right? Depends on, how much he assumes his draft stock is going to plummet with this injury. Either way, I'm pumped about it. Going to be able to watch this game with my dad, which I'm excited about, because, we're states away right now, and he's a huge Michigan fan. We didn't get to watch Ohio State together, so that'll be a good time. But yeah, man, I'm excited for it. And also, I think a lot of Big Ten fans have at least one SEC team that they bandwagon. Now that I'm a resident of Austin, I got to say, I've watched way more Texas football than I have in my entire life. And I think that I finally can declare that I'm bandwagoning an SEC team in Texas. So go Longhorns.
Hook 'em, dude. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em,
hey,
baby.
Texas being back is great for college football, in my opinion.
100%.
Seeing McConaughey walk around with that poise, flashing the horns. There's something about Texas being back that makes college football better. And they're, about as back as you can get. I mean, because I think they are favored to beat Washington. I do think that they will beat Washington. Mm-hmm. And Texas already beat Bama in Tuscaloosa this year. Texas is, in my opinion, the sleeper of this college football playoff, because I don't think a lot of people are giving, Washington a chance. And that's reasonable. I think they're probably the worst of the four, even though they're the 2 seed. But Texas is a dangerous team who the winner of this Michigan-Bama game is probably going to see. And, again, I still think the winner of that game, 1 versus 4, wins it. But Texas being back makes things interesting, and they have playmakers, and Sark is a good coach who knows Saban well and already exposed him earlier this year. Right. Now, beating Saban twice in the same year, not many people have done, right. Especially his former coaches, former assistants. So, but this is what you wanted. You got 4 really good football teams. I think they'll be competitive games, and if Florida State were to be in, I think that would not have been the case, even though that might have been the feel like the right thing to do, and that would have pissed off the least amount of people. I think they actually went against the grain here and did the right thing and got the 4 best in. You could argue Georgia's better than Washington or Texas, but
again, controlled their own destiny and lost, and I think that's what matters. Not only do I agree with you that Texas is a legit team, I think that, honestly, that Oklahoma game that they did lose was incredibly fluky. I don't know if you watched that one, but it was turnover city on both teams. Just neither team really got in a rhythm.
Rivalry games are weird, man. I mean, Alabama almost, they needed a prayer on 4th and 31 to beat Auburn, and Auburn's no good this year. But the very next week, literally 7 days later, they beat the number 1 team in the country. Yep. So college football is weird. Rivalry game. Same with Washington. Washington had a close game with Washington State, who's not very good this year. And then they come out and they beat Oregon a second time. You know how hard it is to beat the same team twice, right? That is a hard thing to do. They were 10-point underdogs against Oregon in that Pac-12 title game, and they took care of business. They established the run. Penix looks really, really good. Does your Heisman opinion change after this weekend? Because the finalists were announced. I still think it's pretty solid, Jaden Daniels, just in terms of what he's put up numbers wise.
I mean, yeah, because like what was it? It's Daniels, Harrison, Nix, and who's the fourth one?
Penix, I think.
Okay, so what is that? 3 out of 4 guys are not making an appearance in the playoffs, so winningness is not being used as the primary criteria then. And if that's the case, then I think it's got to go to Daniels, right? Like, is that fair logic?
I think it's got to be. I think Daniels has been the best player in the country, and I don't think it's been really close.
Yeah, if that's the criteria we're grading it on, then 100% it's
and in our last episode, we went through his numbers and we compared them. And there's not many guys. I mean, I can share a stat with you right now, John, that I sent it to you on Twitter with about Jaden Daniels and why I think it's so big. The only quarterbacks in the SEC to record for 50 or more touchdowns, right? Let me just read you this list, okay, in SEC history. Bryce Young, number 1 overall draft pick, Heisman winner. Cam Newton, number one overall draft pick, Heisman winner. Tim Tebow, probably one of the best college football players of all time. Joe Burrow, Heisman winner, number 1 draft pick, and Jaden Daniels. So
he's in good company.
That's pretty good company in the SEC. And then if you look at his completion percentage and yards and points accounted for, that's all upwards of the best we've ever seen with Joe Burrow's record-breaking season at LSU. So I think you have to give it to him. You can't fault him for his defense being shitty, right? Like 3 losses in the SEC, and just a record-breaking year for him individually. Nobody else really. Penix, you can make the argument, right? He's had some Heisman moments for sure. Beating Nix again was definitely one of them. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I also, one last college football thing before we hop into the NFL. Is Ryan Day a fired man? Because a lot of Ohio State players entered the transfer portal, and I can't imagine that you are doing that unless your coach, the whispering around the organization is that your coach is gone. Unless all these guys plan on going to the Georgias, Bamas, and Michigans of the world for next season.
John, there are 2 scenarios right now because you're onto something, right? People don't all transfer at that rate unless something's happening, right? So there's 2 things.
Ohio State's still a top 5 program in the country.
They have 1 loss this year, right. To the number 1 team in the country now. There's 2 things that could be happening, right? Ryan Day is fired, or is going to be fired, right? That's one thing that's potentially happening, and he's, players are catching on to it, and he probably is, looking out for them and saying, if I'm out, you guys should probably consider your options, which I would do as a player as well in this day and age. Or 2, he feels the pressure, and he's puckered, and, he knows that his life's on the line here, his job's on the line, so he's pushing players out that he doesn't think can get it done, and he's going to bring in, using the transfer portal and heavy recruiting and a lot of NIL money, he's going to get the players that he thinks he needs to shift this program back.
I like that alternative theory as well, and I think
because that is a very real thing. I've seen how coaches in college can kind of push people out, and basically, they give you basically an alternative, right? I've seen some of my friends and teammates have this happen to them. Like, hey, you're a good kid, blah 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 blah. You won't play here. I won't play you here. I encourage you to consider your options and transfer. If you do not transfer, we'll keep you here on scholarship, but you won't play. And that's the conversation. So when you hear that as a young kid, like Kyle McCord is 19 years old, 20 years old. He's had 1 loss as a starter. He hears that and he goes, okay, well, if I put my name in the portal, chances are I could probably go play at Texas or Oklahoma or somewhere and get a $2 million NIL deal and kind of get a fresh start. Right. And it's basically free agency every single year. You ever see these NFL quarterbacks getting these free agency discussions and, the Kirk Cousins of the world and the negotiations with agents? That's basically what a college quarterback can do every single year right now because there's no NIL rules or guidelines.
Just nuts.
So why would you not, no matter where you're at, why would you not just put your name in the portal and make Ohio State pay you more to keep you? Because you can always come back. You can enter the portal and then decide to stay. We've seen a lot of guys do that too, right? So you could enter the portal, and Texas calls McCord and says, hey, we'll give you $5 million to come play for us. Sign me up. Boom, gone, right? Or Ohio State says, hey, we really want you back. We'll give you another $1 million. Okay, I'll come back. Why would you not do that?
Right.
I mean, it's a whole different world. It's basically free agency. He's not the only guy doing this, by the way. And I mean, this is the one that stands out to me because of how good Ohio State was, and he had a pretty damn good year as a first-year starter. But you got DJ Uiagalelei, or however you say his name, from Oregon State. He's in the portal. You have Washington State's quarterback in the portal. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma. You mentioned that Oklahoma-Texas game. He had a great game that game. He's in the portal. All these guys are Duke's quarterback, who's a freak athlete's in the portal. Like, a lot of good players in the portal.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising.
Yeah, and again, I'm still of the opinion that this is good for the sport of college football. Like, I know there's like a lot of and the NIL and the transfer portal. I see a lot of old guys commenting like, this is ruining the sport. Like, what about team spirit? What about your school? Like, make no mistake, these guys are here to play football and have a shot to get to the next level and to probably at this point make like a little bit of a living for themselves while they have the opportunity for the guys that aren't NFL tier. And I think this raises the competition. I think it gives more opportunities for players. I think it keeps coaches and the organizations as a whole a lot more honest. Like, I think these are good things for the sport. Everything I'm rattling off here sounds like a positive for the sport. So, the era of, just one or two teams in college football dominating everything all the time is dead. And I think the sooner you make peace with that, and the sooner you make peace with the fact that these kids are here to make some money, because that's totally okay, the better. And I think, again, it's good for the sport as a whole.
Yeah. I'm torn on it, John, because as a former player, I obviously 100% agree with you. But as just a fan of football and knowing the difference between like pro football and college, like there was a reason I think that people still loved watching college, and a lot of people would rather watch college than the NFL. And I think it was because of that, like, because it's a bridge between high school, which is the purest form of the sport, to the pros where everyone's getting paid to do it. And college was that weird in between where everyone's trying to make it, and you still have like that brotherhood. You still have that, like, you have to stick it out if you're not starting. You still have to climb through an uphill battle and find a way to make yourself play on the field, get, more playing time, more opportunities, all that. And now it's so much closer to the professional than it is to the high school level. That bridge is gone.
But let's be real here. It's been that way for a long time, and now we're just admitting it openly, right? Like, I think that's like, and again, like, speak of Kyle McCord. Is this guy an NFL caliber quarterback? Probably not, right? And so this is probably his only shot to make like silly amounts of money playing the sport of football. And by all means, go and do that, man. If you can make $1 million, playing college football, hell yeah, like 100%. Because, those opportunities might not be afforded to you at the next level, right? And
get it while you can, dude. I mean,
100%. So that's where I'm at. So let's get into NFL talk from here, because there's
speaking of the bridge, that bridge into the NFL. College football gets closer to being pro, so we might as well talk pro ball as well. We do talk majority pro ball on the show, but I think I've always said to John that we should talk more college ball, because I love college ball too. I love them equally, honestly.
The problem is that you can spend so much time talking about college ball and I think we do a good job of it, right? Like, it starts creeping its way into the conversation the further the season goes on, because it starts to
the draft stuff is off season. We do a lot of that, which is again a bridge between the two. But God, I mean, we just love football on this show of all levels.
Sorry, but I love the men's league, like, because the things that people do at this level are just absolutely insane, and you never know what you're going to get week to week. Let's start it off with the game of 0 punts, which I believe is only the 5th or 6th game in the modern era that went no punts from either team. Seahawks at Dallas. Seahawks played a really good game, fall a little bit short, lose to Dallas, who failed to cover, and this is the first time that I haven't taken them in 4 weeks to cover. So I'm pretty stoked on that one. I mean, it was a good game, and I think Dallas, Mark's going to probably go on a tangent about this. Dallas is a legit team. They're beating, a good team for once, but per usual, it was a way closer game this time around. It wasn't just them blowing out and dominating like they do against the bad teams. And look, the Seahawks are better than their record, but I also am like, are they really in this upper echelon, top 5, top 6 teams? I don't really personally think so. So that's what I took from this game personally.
I just, John doesn't want to give the Seahawks as much credit as they deserve, and I don't think you want to give Dallas as much credit as they deserve. So I think it's a weird thing where both these teams you've kind of had a vendetta against a little bit, and I understand why. But Dallas is very much in the conversation to be the 1 seed in the NFC. If you don't see that happening and you don't see Dak as an MVP candidate, you aren't watching these games. Like he is playing out of his mind. It's time for him to get some of the conversation about that he deserves. He's overcome a lot of criticism, far more than probably most quarterbacks in this modern era. I mean, seriously, like he gets criticized at some of the highest clips you've ever seen. He deserves some of the love at this point because he has been balling out. I know their schedule has been light, but the Seahawks, in my opinion, are not a light team. They came in, again, they did not punt. If you go into it, John, if we went into this game, let's say we were flashback a week, we're making our pick, and I said, John, I have an inside scoop from the future. I don't know what's going to happen in the game, but I'm going to tell you one thing about the game, and you tell me who you're going to pick. I'm going to tell you the Seahawks will not punt. Who wins the game?
You would say Seahawks.
Right. So what does that tell you about how good Dallas had to be to overcome that and still win the game, right? Like that's obviously there's some questions on both sides defensively for those teams to not allow a single punt, but that is insane. Okay, that is insane.
And it was a great game to watch, by the way. I mean,
it was that's how football should be played. Screw the punts. No offense to punters out there, but I'm sorry. Like I'd rather watch points or people going for it on 4th down every single drive. Like nobody wants to see a punt and flipping the field position and all that, right? That's the smart move normally, but people love seeing people go for it on 4th down and score every drive and, drives ending in points, whether it's field goal or touchdown. That's what you want to see. But that was insane to have no punts and for them still to win that game. I think that tells you a little bit about that team. And I think it's more special than people realize.
No, it is. And, look, the best part is our speculation is going to end super quick for both of these teams because guess who each team is playing next week? Hawks got the Niners and Cowboys have the Eagles. And if they win or lose either of those games, that will answer, I think, questions for both teams. I
think it's an unfair matchup for Seattle to make that comparison because the Niners are just that good. But I do think Dallas is favored to win, and they almost beat Philly in Philly a few weeks back. Let's not forget Dak steps out a yard short. And they probably do in that game. So, I actually think the Cowboys will take care of business and be a legitimate threat to win that division and to win and be the 1 seed in the NFC.
I actually think I might be in Dallas for that game this coming week too. And so if maybe I can, it's Sunday night football though. So I was about to say, maybe I take a quick trip, to Jerry World. Hannah's going on a mini tour, which is why
you would never go into Jerry World, John. I
gotta go see Jerry World. I mean, come on.
Not to root for the Cowboys.
Not to root for the Cowboys, but I'll go into their very nice, very well funded stadium and check it out. Check out the concessions. I'm sure they're pretty good.
Wear some Practice Squad Pod Lions gear.
And there we go. Get bullied for wearing Lions gear inside of Jerry World.
No, just walk in, wear your Lions Practice Squad shirt, and just say, "Hey, we're coming. We're coming."
There we go.
Just say it to every Cowboys fan.
Yes. All right. Moving on to get money. Gardner Minshew making some plays in overtime in order to win the game. This was not a good game for Tennessee. I believe Derrick Henry got hurt. I mean, look, I think it does. I know we've had conversations about this. Does Vrabel get fired this year? Do they keep him around for next year? There's a lot of questions.
Coach, man.
He's a great coach.
That's a tough debate. I think screw the Titans. I don't even want to talk about the Titans because I just think they're a bad football team this year. They don't have a quarterback. They have all kinds of issues. It's not Vrabel's fault necessarily, but he's definitely on the worm seat right now. But I want to talk about Minshew and these damn Colts because I mean nobody saw this coming.
Are they a playoff team right now? Let's check.
They are a playoff team right now. And they just find ways to win games. Minshew, I said this in the beginning of the year, John, when we were doing our Anthony Richardson slander. And shout out to Max, okay, Max Hornet for one of our top fans, one of our boys. I texted him. I said, "Listen, Minshew greater than Richardson?" ? And he said, "It just so turns out we have the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL." That's what he responded with on the same roster.
I love Max.
So, and that might be partially the case here because Minshew, I will not give Richardson his credit yet. I still think bust. But Minshew, as I said, deserved to be the starter from the beginning. And if he hasn't proved that he should be a starter in this league, then I mean, look at some of the other guys starting these games in the NFL, man. Minshew is an NFL starter no matter how you spin it. And if it's not an Indy because they want to continue to bet on Anthony Richardson, which I think would be a big mistake, then he'll find somewhere else to be a starter because they're winning games. That's not a team I'd want to see. And, I mean, they're dangerous.
I agree. No, I completely agree. And if they do let Minshew walk, which unfortunately I think that's more likely than not, like somebody go pick this man up because he does deserve a long-term contract. I think he deserves a shot at being a starter again. I completely agree with you. All right, Broncos at Houston, close game, and Mark, I'm so they came so close. What is that? A half point away? A point away? Yeah, 1.5 away. There we go. I'm good at math. At covering, and they did not. Houston walks away with the win at a cost, though. Missing Tank Dell for the rest of the season, which freaking stinks.
For those who don't know, right? If you're new to the show, I placed we do our locks of the week. We do our best picks of the week. That'll be coming later this episode. I am 37-16 this year. John is 26-26, which is nothing to be ashamed of at all. And so we do pick pretty well. I made probably one of the worst picks in history of best bets when the Broncos played the Miami Dolphins earlier this year and got 70 put on them because I was literally like, the Broncos are going to win, blah, blah, blah. And
if you look in the ticker,
it literally
right
in our
now,
ticker, if you're watching this on YouTube, in our ticker, it says, remind Mark to never bet on the Denver Broncos ever again. And so that's been there since that Miami loss. And I decided, like an idiot, to go against my past advice and John's co-advice, and I decided to put the Broncos in my best bets.
And in my defense, I supported it this time too. You
did support it, which was just karma for me making you pick New Orleans a week ago right. And getting you to get a loss in your record. Because at the end of the day, me and John are competing for best bets. You know, who has the better record, and so I do every now and then push him in the wrong direction. Just to toy with them. But this was bad. This sucked. I will never do it again. It's probably my fault. Is it a curse? Did I curse the Broncos? Did I end their winning streak? Probably, because everything was going well when I wasn't picking them to win. And the second I do pick them, they lose again.
Well, watch them win like the next 3 or 4 too. Like it's just gonna.
Yeah, I'm done picking them. They might win out. They might win the Super Bowl if I don't pick them again.
So there's a YouTuber, Brandon Perna, That's Good Sports. And so he's a huge Broncos fan, but he also has the curse wheel. And he does his power rankings, then he spins the curse wheel, and whoever gets selected, they get cursed for that following week. In general, the curse wheel has been pretty accurate. This season especially, it has been terrifying. In fact, Mark, guess who got cursed this past week? The Jaguars. And we'll get to that game, but sufficient to say, I think the curse wheel was accurate. Every time the Lions have been on the curse wheel this year, they've lost as well. So there's power to Brandon Perna's curse wheel.
I don't. Why would he bring negativity into the world to these random teams?
He says he's just the messenger, and don't be upset. But what I am saying is that you are the inverse of Brandon Perna's curse wheel. You are just whether or not the Denver Broncos are cursed on any given week, and that's where I was going with that conversation.
I suppose.
Speaking of curses, the Patriots' ability to score points, I guess, is cursed, and the Chargers' ability to look like a winning team in any situation is also cursed. And to make matters worse, this game pushed.
This is a garbage. This is. Anytime you see a 6-0 game, you go, they missed an extra point. Nope. There were no touchdowns scored in this game. Shout out to Justin Herbert because I did go against him in fantasy football, so that was really good. That helped me secure playoff spot in my league. After, by the way, I was the 10 seed in a 10-man league for 3 weeks, and I am now the 5 seed because I've won 4 straight. And this is what I do. I did the same thing last year, and I won my league last year. So that's what I do. That's what we do here on the Practice Squad Pod. We do give fantasy football advice. Check those episodes out if you're not an idiot. But
Mark, here's a fun one for fantasy football real quick. I am, with very similar drafts, I am 10-2. Is my math correct on that? In one league, and I am 4-9 in the other. I think I'm tied for last place in the other. The players are very.
It's about
similar.
matchups, man. It's about matchups. So
it's nuts. But yeah. Sorry, what you had something that you were about to say before I interrupted you with that.
Yeah. So this game, to me, it proved one thing. I think the Patriots are the worst team in football, and I think at this point they might actually be trying to lose. I think they're trying to play good defense and lose. I think that's what they're trying to do. So they're just being as bad as they can be offensively. But also, I think is it crazy to say fire a coach after a win? Like, is it crazy to say that? Like, because I think a win's a win in the NFL. But like Brandon Staley, you actually didn't move even an inch more towards keeping your job after winning a game. Like, you probably actually got more fired on the if I was looking at it, are you going to be fired scale? This is where Brandon Staley was.
It would have increased
after a win,
right,
in New England, in Foxborough. He actually got more to the I'm going to be fired towards that side of the spectrum there.
I cannot disagree.
I mean, that's insane. Like, how do you score 6 points with Justin Herbert and some of the weapons they have, and Kellen Moore is one of the best play callers in football. Whatever, man. I mean, at least Brandon Staley got his defense dialed.
Yeah, sure. That's what it was. Not the Patriots' offense being so bad, like just vomit worthy. All right. So as I said before, you and I started recording, Mark. I owed Hannah a birthday present from a while ago because the Texas heat has been so bad that this wasn't worth it. But I got her like a horse riding trail ride thing, and that's what I did to start my Sunday morning. Timed out perfectly, like it was right before the games were going to get rolling, and I am like 15 minutes late, and I'm like, okay, well 15 minutes late, whatever, we'll get tuned in for this Lions Saints game. I'm what have I missed, 5-6 minutes? I'm sure nothing's happened, and I tune into the game. I see that it's 21-0, and I go, what the hell happened? I know this game ended up getting closer, and there was some fluky weird stuff. But my takeaways with this is that the Lions went into one of the hardest places to play in the league and won, which I think is significant. And our rookies across the board are incredibly good. And I am on the JMO train officially. I think I'm officially ready to declare him a good player. He is lightning fast, and now that he's starting to get comfortable and he's starting to feel like a part of this team, his talent is showing. Why he was drafted so high is showing. And I think this year is going to just be another year where we're getting a taste of that. And next year is going to be ridiculous for him. That's how I feel about JMO. And I honestly, I have, the utmost faith in this offense. And by the way, Jack Campbell, really stepped up to the plate. The first game that you predicted this, Mark. First game he actually plays the position that he played all of college, and he tore it up. I think you have to consider keeping him there and moving Anzalone to Will based off of how he played. I think that might actually solve some problems with your pass rush that just took a massive hit with losing Lee McNeil to injury reserve with a sprained knee as well. So that's my spiel on this game. Mark, I would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I did say that about Jack Campbell. Sometimes when you get back to where you're comfortable at, that's at Iowa, that's what he was. That's who he was. That's kind of who he still is. And they've been asking him to do things that he's not necessarily comfortable or ready, or might never be ready to do, right? Not at the level they want him to be able to do that. So I completely agree with you. I think you leave Campbell there and let him continue to play in a more comfortable role and just be him. And Anzalone, with the experience that he has, probably can adjust better to playing more on the outside. So I completely agree with you there. You're always positive about the Lions. There's a lot to be positive about. I am fearful because the defense as a whole does not look good. And the Saints offense, John, this year, it of all people, is not good. Bad. And we still almost blew this game, spotting a 21-0 start for us. Right? That shows you, you go up 21-0 in the first 5 to 10 minutes of a football game in the NFL, okay? Because your offense is taking care of business and because you created one turnover.
One-handed pick from Brian.
It was an awesome pick, yeah. Beautiful. But you created turnover. Yeah, it was a great play. But as a whole, when you look at this defense, John, it is concerning. Because if you didn't go up 21-0, you do lose this game. And I mean, I know they're 9-3, and I know that like Lions fans don't even know what to do with themselves right now. And I honestly, I'm very excited, and I hope they continue to win and find a way to get a home playoff game and maybe even steal a 1 or 2 seed in the NFC. But I'm very concerned. Like my real football knowledge sense of myself is looking at these games, and they are not the team that I thought they were because their defense just is not playing at high level.
I mean,
caliber.
it's like the inverse of some of these other teams with amazing I mean, their offense is Super Bowl tier, bar none. That's not even something to have a conversation about. This offense can win Super Bowls handedly. Defense is still a massive concern, and I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not the case. It is a massive concern. You already have a very weak pass rush, in my opinion. I think losing Aleem McNeil in the middle for the rest of the regular season is a massive problem, 100%. And so I think if you're Aaron Glenn, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I need to change from a scheme perspective to solve this problem? Even if it's just bending and not breaking in the playoffs, what do I have to do to coach my defense to do something like that? Again, I do think moving Jack Campbell can potentially solve that problem. I think you actually will generate more pass rush with that. The interior of the defensive line is still a massive problem. You have to wonder what Jalen Carter looks like right there, right? Which I know we're always going to be saying what if in that regard, and that dude is playing his ass off in Philly. But there's a lot of questions that you can sit around and ask about the situation. I think our secondary is not bad, but here's two things that will give you just a little bit of hope. They are players by the name of James Houston and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And I do think those two guys and get, McNeil back and healthy is enough to tilt more into the bending and not breaking rather than just breaking defense, because Houston was massive for Hutchinson because he can actually generate pass rush, on an island by himself because he's so fast. And CJ can do basically anything that you ask him to behind the line of scrimmage. And so I think having those two guys to kind of plug in those gaps could be massive for the Lions. And also, I think that you need to fire all of the Saints coaching staff because they have to play both sides of it here. Me being, a bandwagon Saints fan. I mean, Carmichael, I don't know what else you need to see from him. I think he stinks. It's crazy that Taysom Hill, I think you have a better shot of having Taysom Hill be the starting quarterback
power over
for
and
real.
over.
For real.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some incredible receiving talent, and you can't figure out ways to consistently have a receiving game. You have Alvin Kamara in the backfield. I don't get it. I truly don't get it. And Dennis Allen is not a winning coach. He's been there for 2 years.
Dude, his record's horrible.
It's brutal. So that's where I'm at.
John, can I say something that scares me big time?
And
then we can move on to the next game. The Green Bay Packers sneaking into the playoffs and coming to Ford Field and beating us in the first game.
We'll get to that.
That scares me because they look very good, and we'll talk about when we get there to that game. But that is on the horizon, and that would be terrible. That would
what
suck
else is
so
scary?
Bad.
Is every skill player on that field is under the age of 24 years old. So they have built an offensive foundation that is set up to just do nothing but grow and get better over the next few years. The Packers are not going away. They were at one point the worst team in this league, I think. But I think to think that was just what the Packers were going to be for years to come would be a huge mistake. And you can see my preseason speculation on the Packers. I thought they were going to be a good team, and here they are gunning for getting second place in the NFC North. So we'll talk about them more in a bit. First, I have to talk about the Steelers disappointing me because Kenny Pickett, I think, broke his ankle or has a high ankle sprain or something like that. Cardinals coming out and winning this game. It was obviously disappointing for my best bets. I am once again curbed out of having a winning record in my best bets, which stinks.
It might not be meant to be.
It maybe I'll just be perfectly 500 to end the season. That sounds about right. And then I'm kind of speed running here to another shitter of a game where a total of 21 points were scored. Tim Boyle gets released following this game.
I I mean, he had no business. He had no business.
There's all sorts of drama going on in New York right now. And Rodgers goes on Pat McAfee and says, people are slandering Zach Wilson. People are slandering me. The season sucks. It's a lot of adversity, but, hippie bullshit. It's all good. We're going to be fine for next season, is basically.
Yeah.
And the Falcons now are creating a little bit of distance at the top of the NFC South, too.
Dude, the Falcons stink, man.
They are not good. They are not good at all, but they have some distance now on the other teams in their division, which means they're going to be a playoff team.
The Jets did have a 2-0 lead in this game, which is always sick. I think you just play Zach Wilson. I think you just let him. You can't convince me that they're better without him playing.
No,
I know you don't just let him play. Just let him play. Let him continue to kind of figure it out. It's not going to look pretty. He's going to make some impressive plays. I mean, he's been on the Aliens of the Week a few times. He's been on our, he's made some impressive things happen. He's almost beat the Chiefs. He beat the Eagles. Come on, just let him play. I think see what happens.
I think you're trying to develop him. I think Aaron Rodgers being back in that building permanently is good for him. I agree. Let the kid play. And I mean, shit. At the end of the day, you only have 2 or 3 games until Rodgers, even with a losing record, might show himself back to the field.
That would be the dumbest thing ever, man. He should
it would
not
be.
Do that.
I completely agree with you, but he might, crazily enough. All right, then you have the Dolphins at Washington. And I guess 9.5 points was not enough. They needed to actually get 29.5 points in order to potentially cover this game.
The Commanders stink.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill in the MVP conversation because
he's got to be.
I think he should be.
If he cracks 2,000 yards, I think he needs to be the front runner for it. Frankly,
in my opinion, if Miami keeps winning and he does what you just said, I mean, it's not even just the yards. He's getting touchdowns. He's catching 8 to 10 catches a game. He is just become a problem. He has become an NFL positional anomaly. There's never been a receiver like that. There's never been a receiver that is that fast, still has the quickness and after the catch ability. He doesn't really have he had some drop problems early in his career. He's fixed that. He still can run routes. He can go out of the backfield. He can play in the slot. He can play out wide. He is a unicorn. He is.
The Dolphins paid
no other receiver we've ever seen
for him, and it was worth every penny. Straight up,
he's an absolute weapon and changes how you can call your offense, and he changes how defenses have to call their defense. So, I think Miami has become more and more of a legit team. I know they beat up on a bad team, but dangerous team in the AFC. Definitely a team to continue to look at, keep an eye on, because
if you don't have a sound defensive game plan for this team, you're going to lose. And that's it. They're like the Lions on steroids, where even if their defense is mid-tier at best, their offense is just so unstoppable that it doesn't matter. I mean, talk about teams that probably have very little need for a punter. This is one of those teams.
Do you root for Mike McDaniel, or are you one of the people that just is annoyed with his unprofessional bullshit?
No, I think first of all, I think he's hilarious. Second of all, it's the perfect I don't know if he's a millennial, but just the mentality of it doesn't care what you look like or how you act as long as you're good at your job. That is Mike McDaniel.
I think he's a genius.
And he's incredibly smart, and that's what and honestly, I root for Shanahan tree kind of people. I just think the 49ers are one of the cooler teams, and it's fun watching, Shanahan disciples go and be successful elsewhere. So, all right, Panthers at Bucks. Bucks win. Panthers are officially out of playoff contention. They are the first team that it is mathematically impossible for them to make the playoffs. Patriots will be the same way next week if they lose. I don't know if I have much else to say about this game. Is Baker gonna stay Tampa's quarterback for the foreseeable future, do you think? I'm just curious what your take is on it.
I think he's doing enough to earn that at least to be there to compete. And I wouldn't count them out of the division either.
No.
I think they still
couple
got a chance.
Couple games out, just like the Saints are.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a bad division. The Panthers are historically bad, and I don't see it getting much better for them anytime soon. So, if you're a Carolina fan, sorry, it sucks.
How far they've fallen from Cam Newton and deep playoff runs and Super Bowls, unfortunately. All All right, you got Browns at Rams, and Rams have a handed victory against the Browns. I frankly wasn't expecting this, and you have to ask some questions about the Rams' playoff hopes and those 6th and 7th seeds. I feel like are kind of wide open in the NFC with a lot of, frankly, I'd say deserving teams to earn those 6th and 7th teams. I know people are always like AFC, AFC, AFC. That's the better conference. I don't know if I can back that argument this year. I really don't.
John, I will say one thing here. It was a good week for the Shanahan tree, right?
Mhm.
You have McVay and the Rams, who figure out an offensive scheme to put up 36 against a Browns defense that, I mean, just hasn't given up that level of offensive success all year. You have Shanahan himself take care of business against the Eagles. You have LaFleur take care of business against the defending champs. And like we just talked about, you have Mike McDaniel take care of the team that they all used to coach for, the Commanders. So pretty good week for the Shanahan tree.
All 4 of them were there at once.
At one
Right?
time. So again, the Commanders, how did you let all 4 of those guys walk out of the building? That's got to suck. They should definitely do like a 30 for 30 on that. With that being said, specifically McVay, again, that is a tough battle up against Jim Schwartz in this defense that Cleveland has. So, I mean, are the Rams a playoff team?
Yeah, I 100% think so. I think their defense is good enough, and I think their offense is straight up good when they're healthy. I mean, Kupp, Nakua, they have finally like a better running back in Williams. I think the investments they made both in the draft and free agency in the offensive line, and Stafford's playing good football right now and has kept his interceptions relatively low this season. I mean, hard
Don't
to
piss me
dispute.
off, John. Don't start to John is poking so subtly. Scott, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not
Good.
gonna go there. I'm gonna
Be
wait.
an
You know what
adult.
else? You know what else could potentially happen, John?
What?
Let me ask you this: what would be worse? Okay, the Packers coming to Ford Field and winning the first playoff game,
This
or
has
the
been a
Rams
huge point of
coming
conversation.
to
Yep.
like what would you rather see happen? Because or on the other side, who would you rather see the Lions host and beat?
Yeah.
I would love to see them beat Stafford.
I was gonna say I know everybody's like, for whatever reason this has become the talk of the week. Oh, what if the Rams play the Lions at Ford Field? Like, isn't that scary? No, I don't understand why that's scary. Straight up, like I
would so much rather have that than the Packers, dude.
yeah. And,
I
and by the
actually
way,
am worried about the Packers.
I think the Lions beat both of these teams in the playoffs, 100%. Like at Ford
100.
Field,
I cannot say 100%.
Okay,
I would
90,
obviously
90%.
Obviously, I would tilt to yes, the Lions get it done in a home game where that place is going to be deafening. But, dude, the Packers look freaking good. They just beat us on Thanksgiving, pretty handedly.
I know. There's things that need to get figured out on the Lions side still, and I think the Packers, man, like in hindsight, right? That's one of those games where I'm like, oh no, like a bad team's beating us. Clearly, that's not the case. What happened is that the Lions thought they were playing the same team that they played in whatever it was, week 4. And this Packers team is not the team they played in week 4. And I think they came out sleepy and ready to dominate them again. And sure enough, this team is not the same. Rashawn Gary's hold on. Do we just want to talk about KC and Green Bay since you segued it so well and then bounce back to San Fran and Eagles? Is that fine?
Yeah, let's save that. Let's save that game.
Sounds good. Rashawn Gary's ability as a pass rusher has done nothing but skyrocket this season. He is one of those guys that can single-handedly generate a pass rush. He is freaking good. I think their defense in general has improved a lot. And then really what the talk of the town is the offense. The team's very young, and Jordan Love, I feel like, is slinging it. And by the way, they ate up a shit ton of clock this game. I think the KC only had 2 drives in the first half because the Packers were just making their way downfield and making shit happen. If you are,
you know how hard that is to do, dude. That's against the Kansas City defense.
Kansas City defense that's really freaking good. If you are an NFC North team supporter that is not a fan of the Green Bay Packers, I think you should be scared. You need to look at this and go, shit. History is repeating itself again. They found themselves a guy in Jordan Love.
There's no way they get it right 3 times in a row, right? There's no way that they go from Favre to Rodgers to Love and that actually stands and becomes like a true passing of the torch, for a 3rd time.
Terrifying.
I mean, dude, he has looked good. He has looked good.
It is terrifying to think about. So I don't know. And by the way, I think I think we had a lot of faith that KC going into December would figure out their offensive woes. They haven't yet, and I think if you're a Kansas City fan, you should be concerned about that. I mean, their receiving core stinks. It just straight up is not good. I'm in that bucket at this point. I don't know if we solve that.
I still think I'll probably, if you're a betting man and you like to do futures, Kansas City to still win or go to the Super Bowl right now would be a steal of a bet, I think, because I do still think I'm not going to go against Patrick Mahomes until I see it happen.
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I can't give that as much credit to KC itself as the AFC being a little weaker. And I don't know, man. KC against Baltimore, KC against the Dolphins a second time in the playoffs.
I'm riding with Mahomes.
I don't know, man.
I am if I place a bet and I lose a bet on Mahomes, I mean he's gonna win, dude. He'll find ways to win. If he doesn't, it's a rare thing. So
I guess
if you like to have good odds and you like betting on a guy that's already done it time and time again and has proven himself already in this league, the pieces will come together for Kansas City. I'm here to say, Chiefs fans, do not worry. Now is just a good opportunity to double down and get some value on them pulling it off. Because
don't get me wrong, Mark. I was in the exact same bucket as you until the calendar has a 12 instead of an 11 on it, and it's December football, and you got to be winning freaking games. I'm sorry.
Hey, they're still atop their division, all right. And then what are they? A game back, 2 games back now.
Yeah, 2 games back from the 1 seed, I think. So
yeah, and the Ravens still have to play the 49ers, and I'm not worried about Kansas City
for sure. And then finally, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Jaguars. And this was a mess of a game if you're a Jaguars fan. Obviously, losing Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk. Stinks.
And losing the game.
Lot of sadness there. And, I mean, shout out to Cincinnati for getting it done, against all odds in that situation. So it sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to be back in like 2 or 3 weeks. Kirk probably out for the season.
So Kirk's it was a testicle injury, wasn't it?
They said abdominal, but I think
so. I heard that he had some sort of, I don't know what the proper word is, like a testicular something, which is I think where it gets like tangled up and goes up in your abdomen, which is extremely painful. I actually had a teammate where that happened to him once, and it was. I mean, he had to have surgery and stuff.
Well, so he has to have surgery for it.
He has to have surgery for it, yeah. So I think, and obviously the league being freaking, soft, just doesn't want to say that his balls, like, basically exploded or got tangled. But that's what happened. It's not an abdomen injury. So okay. I don't know how much time.
I didn't know that. I knew that him getting hit in the nuts had something to do with it. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had,
like... I think he caught a ball between his legs or something.
I think it's when he landed. I think he landed and he probably had his testicles were probably underneath the force of when he landed. Right? So if you're obviously you're probably cringing at all the guys out there are thinking about that. If you've gotten hit in the nuts before, it's not exactly fun. But you can imagine it's pretty tough when you're up in the air and you catch a ball.
Right, the force of gravity
lands on the bottom of your sack, dude. I mean, I can't imagine that's very. So and you could tell he was in extreme pain.
Yeah.
So I do think he'll be back because I don't know. The procedures, I don't think it's like a crazy complicated procedure, and once they do fix it, the pain is like pretty much relieved. You just have to let the
so maybe that.
I think he'll be back in probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Okay.
They didn't put him on injured reserve, did they?
They didn't today with the roster move, so there's a chance he's back.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back. It's not like a.
But I mean, I'm just saying. Look, Jags going into the next minimum 2, maybe 3 or 4 games without their starting quarterback and their wide receiver 1 changes the picture a little bit. And you see that in the spreads actually, and what we're about to move on to, which is our picks for the week and our best bets. So look at that, just kind of crushing it on the segues today, honestly.
Smooth segues, man. Smooth segues.
Okay.
So just to start, just again, reminder, I'm 37-16 in my best picks. I did have a losing week last week for the first time in I think 8 weeks. So I'm not really used to being a loser. John is at even 26 and 26. Very much
Big week for me.
If you were betting and riding with us and you combined our records, you would be a very rich man. So I do suggest that you do ride with us and gamble responsibly, but I do suggest that you gamble responsibly with us because usually you win. But we'll get into it, John. First game, I want to point out something. Patriots at Pittsburgh, 6-point spread right now. Steelers are favored, but over-under set at 30. That's one of the lowest we've seen in NFL recent history.
It's the lowest one of the season. With Pickett out and with the Patriots offense being objectively by a huge margin, the worst in the league, worse than the Jets, I would say, somehow, some way. You're expected not a whole lot of points. And as you said, the Steelers are 6-point favorites. I like the Steelers to win this and to cover, except, man, expect it to be a defensive game. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, we almost have to take the under. It's historically low. I mean, do you see a world where either team scores 15 points?
No, because you are getting unstoppable defense against a very stoppable offense twice. And so, I don't know. I mean, it being that low gives me some pause, but I mean, by all means, Mark, if you're feeling the vibe, I encourage you to take it.
I just feel like an over-under that low, you almost have to take it.
I mean, the Patriots scored 6 total points last week, so, and I think the Steelers.
No, the Patriots scored 0.
0. Sorry, that game had 6 total points. So
and the Steelers don't have. Who's the Steelers' backup quarterback?
Trubisky.
Oh man. Yeah, give me the under.
All right.
Putting the under in my best bets. I just feel like, I mean, it's an NFL record low. I feel like a lot of people are gonna bet the over for that reason. So I'm gonna go with the under. There's no way those teams score 30 combined points. I'm sorry.
I'm here for it. Texans at Jets. Jets are getting 5.5. Texans obviously missing Tank Dell, which is a pretty massive blow to their offense. Jets probably starting Zach Wilson again, from what the speculation is right now. Jets are getting 5.5 points at home. I don't know how to feel about this game at all.
I like the Jets to cover, man.
I think I do too, just because the defense will show up. Gives Stroud some tough to deal with looks, and Stroud is missing the guy that he likes to go to in hairy situations. So I do think that I think in general, missing a star wide receiver doesn't totally move the needle that much.
But for a rookie,
I was going to say for a rookie quarterback that really leans on Tank's talent to be productive, I think it is going to act with him a little bit. I like the Jets to cover too. Not adding it to my best bets though.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jets cover.
All right, Bears 3-point dogs at home against the Lions. It is going to be a horrible weather game. It's going to be 25 degrees
snow, I heard,
and
right?
Snowing. Correct.
I love that. That is so NFC North.
Oh, I love it. I cannot wait.
That is so Bears Lions football.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say, and John, feel free to hop on this with me. Let me paint you a little picture, right? Snowy, perfect Soldier Field. Justin Fields already struggles to throw the ball. Lions do a much better job of stopping the run than they do stopping the pass. The Bears had a lot of success when they played a few weeks ago with quarterback run. I think the Lions will be much more prepared for that. And knowing that they won't be able to throw it as easily, they'll be able to commit more guys to stopping that. I think that the Lions completely shut down the Bears offense because that's all they're going to be able to do is try to rush Justin Fields, and I think we're going to shut it down. And the Lions, what do they do better than anybody in the league? Even when you know it's coming,
run the damn ball.
So give me the Lions as my best bet to cover the 3.
Yeah, I think I'm going to join you on that one. I think the Lions' run game in of itself is going to get this done. So
the reason that spread's so low is because of the Lions' weak defense the last few weeks. But what Vegas is maybe missing a little bit, and when they're creating that spread, is I don't think they realize like the reason their defense is so bad is because of their ability to not rush the passer and to not defend the pass. They have help from Mother Nature on this game.
I will say
both those things.
The other thing that Vegas is probably accounting for, but probably too much, is Goff is not a good cold quarterback. But okay, here's the defense of that. He beat Green Bay at Lambeau.
He kind of did. Yeah, I mean, he's a California boy, but I've seen him play in some tough weather games, and he's won at Lambeau as a Ram and as a Lion.
Yeah.
And cold weather games, and I've seen him do well in Seattle. I'm
just saying that's the speculation that's going on with it from a Vegas perspective. I don't agree with it personally.
Reasonable.
And
I think the over/under is probably pretty high in my opinion.
Yeah. Worth noting too, by the way, the Lions are undefeated in their all whites, their winter whites.
Dude,
and
the Bears
they
wear
need
orange,
to wear that. They need to wear that, and the Bears should wear an alternate.
If the Bears wear orange and the Lions wear their coquinas whites, oh my God, that could be in the snow. You're talking about an all-time matchup.
I think in general, the Lions have to wear that because it's snowing.
Yeah,
like they got to come out.
They have to wear the snow uniforms in the snow, and the Bears should do the right thing and wear the all orange. Do not screw. Chicago will screw this up. I fear. Yeah, they need to wear the all orange.
Regardless, the ice whites are going to look sick. I assume that's what the Lions are going to go with. All right, Rams at the Ravens. The Ravens are 7-point favorites. This is a weird game, man, because the Rams got a chip on their shoulder. They got something to prove, and I've been a huge fan of Baltimore, and I think they've been playing really good football. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for Sean McVay, but I don't think they cover here. I think they win still, but I think this game is going to be close. Very, very close. That's my assumption.
I actually think the Ravens roll. I think the Ravens kill them.
Okay. I like it when you and I have, like, just generally speaking, different agreements on a team, and then we like check ourselves out of that for a particular situation in the opposite.
I just think that, you give the Ravens that much time to prepare for Stafford and McVay, that causes problems for them. Historically, I think Stafford struggles when going against the teams that are coming off of a bye, because they have added preparation, and they can do some things, they can dial some things up that will force him to do some not so wise throws, and he'll try to make stuff happen when he probably shouldn't at times. So I don't know, man. I just feel like the Ravens come out firing in Baltimore. I just don't know how well the Rams match up against them on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't think they match up super well either, but I do. Again, this team is in the playoff hunt. Like they can't afford to be losing too many games.
Is Puka out?
I don't think so.
I saw he was hurt, but I don't know.
Let me see.
I don't know if he was playing, because that's another big loss. Because then you're
yeah, that is massive. He is. No, he should be good. It sounds like he has like cramping and like mild hip injury.
I saw AC joint sprain.
AC joint sprain. Okay, I didn't see that. Maybe I was looking at the wrong article. I hate how they make articles long instead of just telling you the information you're trying to find out.
I always just go to fantasy football apps. That's my quickest. Yeah, he's got a shoulder AC joint and he's questionable.
Okay, I did not see that. So got it.
So, either way, play if he plays or not. I like the Ravens.
Yeah. All right, we got the dead quarterback game, Jags at Browns. Browns are 3-point favorites at home. The under/over is 30.5 points.
Damn.
So
it's flirting with the Patriots Steelers for being the lowest.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with this one, because I mean both teams don't have great offenses, but I'm not going to touch this one from a spread perspective. There's way too many questions that I have. But
who's the Jags backup Q? Who do they put in for Lawrence?
CJ Beathard.
He's actually not bad.
That is a hilarious last name. I mean,
on episode 69.
On episode 69, you got CJ Beathard playing against the Browns missing their beat hard in Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry. Low hanging fruit. I like the Browns to cover here. I think they'll win this game. They're kind of at a point where they've lost a few they shouldn't. They need to win some.
I do too.
Not best bets though. Not best bets. Panthers at Saints. I think Saints win this game, and I think Saints cover. Derek Carr's probably going to miss this game in concussion protocol. That makes me feel more confident about this take.
Jameis time.
Taysom time. Honestly, Taysom.
That's a 1-2 punch if I've ever seen one.
100%. I'm a big fan of that combo as a Saints fan, frankly. So we'll see. Not adding to my best bets, but
I think the Panthers cover that.
Think so? Interesting.
Yeah.
We got Get Money, Gardner Minshew at the Bengals. Bengals are 1-point dogs at home.
Wow.
Colts have been playing good football lately, but the Bengals just took it to the Jags too, so they're not out of the race yet. As long as who was it? Was it T. Higgins that threw that interception? Just don't let him throw any passes. I guess. Crazy.
I like the Bengals here to win.
I'm not touching this one. I like the Colts to win, and by default cover because it's a 1-point game. So
unless they win by 1.
Right, which I guess could happen. But in that sense, it's a push anyways. So.
Yeah. I like Cincinnati.
All right, we got Tampa at Atlanta. Atlanta's 2.5-point favorites. Another weird one to me. I kind of like the under in this game, but I think I'm not going to touch it again because Atlanta decides whether or not they want to be a good team on any given week, so I don't know what to project for.
Baker can also light it up. Like I've seen that Bucs offense have some big days.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ride with the Bucs to cover and maybe even win. I don't trust Atlanta. I really don't. And Tampa does a pretty good job of stopping the run. Didn't we have this conversation? I feel like I had this exact conversation earlier this year.
Probably.
And I think I did put Tampa in my best bets when I had this conversation, and exactly what I said would happen did. They stopped Atlanta's run game. Atlanta couldn't do anything, and Baker did just enough to win. Will that same formula of success happen with the same way? Maybe not, but
best bets?
No, not my best bets. But I think I'm going back. I am going to put Cincinnati in my best bets. That I think that they steal that game.
Interesting. All right, we got Hawks at San Fran. San Fran is minus 10.5 points, which I think is crazy based off of how the Seahawks just played Dallas. With that being said, San Fran's a freaking wagon.
You see how they played 2 weeks ago, though. I mean,
we never even covered the San Fran game because we said we were going to come back to it. I just realized from last week.
Well, let's talk about it right now.
Yeah. Their offense is unstoppable when healthy. Period. That Eagles defense is no joke, and they lit them up. It wasn't even close, and defense played good enough to make it that the tush-push wasn't really, an effective way to work your way downfield. San Fran beating the Eagles at Philly. I mean,
that in that fashion, John, they scored like on their last 6 or 7 offensive drives, and they were all like 70-yard plus drives, and it was just beautiful offensive play calling. It was beautiful execution. It was running the ball, passing the ball. Like it was really, really high level stuff from Shanahan and these weapons he has. I want to shout out Deebo Samuel because he
talked a bunch of shit and then showed up.
Often when you talk a bunch of shit, you usually get exposed in this league. He stood on what he said and he came out and balled out and he had a day. And just I feel like the 49. I mean, John, when we had our live stream of this NFC Championship game, almost a full year ago now. When that injury happened, I kept saying, because we were both high on the Niners to go to the Super Bowl and to win it.
Right.
And when that happened, we were like, this is, these Eagles, like, this is a asterisk. Like there's no matter how you spin it, I think I still to this day think the 49ers would have won that game,
Yeah.
barring that Purdy
And
injury.
probably could have / would have won the Super Bowl too. It sucks.
Yeah.
But obviously they're not skipping a beat about it.
They're not skipping a beat about it, man. This was their chance to kind of make that statement right, and
moving
clearly
into
they
this
did.
divisional game, they are now 10.5-point favorites against a divisional rival. When I feel like these big games against pretty good teams, I always kind of, have a little bit of pause. It's always tough when it spreads that big in a game this big too. But one thing that I tend to do just as a safety blanket, where I'm like, okay, I feel kind of, strongly, I just don't know which way I feel strongly, I'm going to take the over. And that has worked for me so far this season, I think 2 or 3 times. And so I'm going to give that a shot again, and we will see if it works out for me. Over into my best bets.
I don't hate that at all. I think the Seahawks cover 10.5, but I don't love it. I could also see the 49ers rolling because they tend to do that against Seattle. Seattle is like a team where every week they look like, hey, this team could do something. This team, could maybe steal a win or two in the playoffs. But then you see them play the 49ers, and you think a completely different thing.
49ers own the Seahawks.
It's their kryptonite, dude. They don't have a chance in these games usually. So that's why you see the spread so high.
Moving on to Vikes, Raiders. Raiders are 3-point dogs at home. Both teams have had 2 weeks to prepare for one another. Another situation where you have, 2 backup quarterbacks filling in. I think the Vikings are not going to be able to handle Max Crosby, and I think the Raiders are going to win this game. And I feel confident enough about that to actually add that to my best bets as well. Now, one stipulation is they are getting Justin Jefferson back, and Raiders secondary isn't very good. I don't think that matters if Josh Dobbs doesn't have time to throw the ball. So, take that for what you will.
I actually agree with you, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm gonna take the Raiders +3. This is in Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that one. +3 at home against a Minnesota team with a backup quarterback that just lost and couldn't score against the Bears. Right? I mean,
I don't think Justin Jefferson is going to tip the scales that much.
I don't think he tips it that much either. A receiver can only do so much on his own. Speaking of other receivers that, haven't really produced a lot and maybe could, Devontae Adams could have a huge game this week. We've been waiting for him. I'm sure in the bye week they were looking at the film.
Vibes have been good since McDaniels has been fired. So
And a little inside secret too to people that don't understand, like during NFL bye weeks, like you get some time off as players, but the coaches are doing like what they call self-scouting. So the coaches will actually go back and watch the games as if they're going to play against themselves, and they'll find their own tendencies, and they'll find things that people are going to, they basically predict what people are going to try to do to you, and they try to tweak things and, have one play that looks exactly like a play they've run a lot of that's different. They'll find new ways to they'll decide, hey, what do we have to do, right? It's kind of like the crossing point in the season. So that's, I think Devontae Adams is going to get more involved, and I think they're going to totally find ways to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and again, why it's nice having a co-host that has been playing football at a high level his entire life. That's awesome insight.
And the Vikings were doing it too, by the way. But I think that they're in a weirder situation because they've had so much change player-wise. The Raiders players, I mean, it really has been kind of the same. They haven't had any major injuries besides their quarterback. So I think they'll have a better idea of what they want to do on both sides of the ball.
Sure. Bills at KC, 47.5. Bills have been playing a lot better football. They've had they were on bye this past week, weren't they? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Sulking after the Eagles loss.
Yeah, but I mean, 2 weeks to prepare. They've been playing better football. This is an interesting matchup here. I think I'm going to do the same thing, especially since I have to play a little catch up. I'm going to take the over for this game. I think a lot of points are going to get scored, despite Casey's issues.
Chiefs are coming off 2 losses in a row, aren't they? Eagles and Packers.
That's correct.
Do you think there's a world where Mahomes loses 3 straight games?
No, I think low probability of that.
Give me Chiefs best bet.
Chiefs to cover.
It's now or never for Mahomes. Now or never for Taylor Swift and her fans, because if they don't figure it out, she will forever be blamed for the downfall of this dynasty. It's just crazy to say. I might get killed for saying that. But no, seriously, like they need to figure it out. They've lost 2 straight. This is back at Arrowhead. They'll rise up to the occasion. There's definitely a Josh Allen Mahomes rivalry that has stemmed from many seasons ago. It's time though. The Chiefs have to get right. Their defense will, I think, Josh Allen turnover prone, right? That's a very good defense that creates turnovers, and Mahomes has to get back somehow to a winning formula. And I think Andy Reid and him and Kelsey and the boys find a way to do that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Broncos at Chargers. Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. The Broncos have been playing better ball overall. This is a tough one, man.
Chargers are favored?
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to even consider doing. I don't know what you're thinking about doing, but if you're thinking about what I think you're thinking about, and if you're thinking about taking the Broncos, I might.
No, I'm not
freak
doing
out.
that. We've learned enough lessons there. I was thinking about taking the Chargers, but I think that Brandon Staley's performance was so piss poor against the Patriots that I just can't get behind that. I think the Broncos are. And guess what, by the way, since both of us are scared to take this game, you're going to freaking watch the Broncos go and win it probably.
You should test the theory and go, you should fade my Broncos curse, and you should take the Broncos.
I think it's a practice squad Broncos curse, frankly.
You haven't taken the Broncos, though. You refuse to.
And I'm not going to do it this game. If I see an opportunity,
I feel like you should do it. I feel like you should do it.
Yeah, but I don't trust you, because last time you told me to do it back, it didn't go very well. So I like the Chargers.
Yeah, but I don't trust you. It's like, yeah, man, you're my friend and all, but I don't trust you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trust me either. No, but if you want to win money, you should trust me. You should definitely ride my picks.
Source, trust me, bro.
Trust the numbers, bro. Stats, math.
Hey, I've been telling you to buy Bitcoin for a long time now.
Yeah.
You should trust me, bro.
I would rather I trust my football brain more than my Bitcoin brain.
And I'm the other way around, so that's
hey, but you're 26 and 26. This is a big week for you.
I think you had Denver. You see, I'm getting aggressive right now.
I think you had Denver to your best bets, and I think that puts you over the edge. I think it puts you over the edge.
I think I'm going to move on to the Eagles-Cowboys. Okay. This game has a 53-point over, which is crazy, and then Dallas is favored by 3.5 points. Honestly, this game can go either way. Even on the point scoring front, I'm not feeling super confident about that, because this is the second time this team has played each other, so they've got things probably a little bit more figured out. Both have great front sevens with not as great secondaries, but enough to make things happen. Yeah, I'm not touching this one, but I will say that I do like Philly to cover. But this one's going to come down to the wire, man.
This line being 3.5 is tough.
Yeah, because like 3.
If it were 2.5 or 3, I would
feel
pretty safe. I'm going to take Philly to cover. I'm not going to put in my best bets. I do think Dallas wins this game somehow, and I do think it spices up the top of the NFC in ways that you can't imagine.
Very exciting stuff.
And the MVP race. This is basically an MVP game, because if Jalen Hurts wins this game and then the Eagles continue to win and get the 1 seed, or if Dallas wins and Dak and those boys keep winning, I pretty much think that that's your MVP, barring Tyreek Hill going for like 2,200 yards.
Well, and speaking of, right, I mean, we got to have a conversation about Tyreek Hill maybe adding another 150, 200 against the Titans this week as well. I think the Dolphins have a good shot to cover here. I don't know if I feel confident enough about it to put it in my best bets, but I think they win by 2 touchdowns here. I think the Titans are about to kind
The
of
Titans are terrible on the road.
Yeah, and I think they're just they're
and Miami
they're
just lights
morally-
it, dude. Miami just lights it up at home.
Yeah,
It's like perfectly warm weather. I mean, half the guys there are on their offense are from Florida, so they're just like playing in their home their home roots. Like it's just
vibes are strong. Yeah,
yeah. I'm not gonna put in my best bets, but I would take the Dolphins.
yeah. I like them to cover, but not best bets level conviction. Best bets level conviction right here. I do like Green Bay to cover here.
Really,
my best bets. Lock it up. Giants are horrible. And if you remember, Giants snuck one out overseas against Green Bay last year. I think they got a bad taste in their mouth about that. I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, but do you think they cover 7?
Yes, they just beat KC by that much, did they not?
Yeah, but that was at Lambeau Field, and I don't know, man. I just the Packers have looked good now 2 games in a row, like really good 2 games in a row. They should do it again, but I kind of feel like the Giants are like a bad team that just gives them like a weird shaky week. I'm not saying the Packers don't win. I'm saying that I think the Giants maybe sneak cover.
Okay, fair.
Like some bullshit garbage time, field goal or something that
Sure.
makes it a 6-point game or something.
I think Tyrod Taylor might be back for them too, so that's worth keeping an eye on.
I mean, DeVito's had it figured out, man. Italian stallion.
All right, we have about 15 minutes left of stuff to talk about because we are 3/4 of the way through season. And what that means is that we need to do our quarterly power rankings because we are not a weekly power rankings kind of
Too much
podcast.
change week to week.
Too much change, and it's like, is it real change, right? Like, are we? I think that's
overreactions.
Bias. But what's
That's
very fun about this is I actually took. So this was last quarter's power ranking. So halfway through the season, this was where our power rankings were at. I had San Fran winning the Super Bowl, Mark like KC winning the Super Bowl. But I just want you to take note of some of these teams towards the bottom. Namely, we have Green Bay towards the bottom. We have Broncos towards the bottom.
Colts.
Colts. And some of these teams towards the top, too. I mean, Jets are top 12 when we're taking a look at this because they kind of still were in the playoff hunt. Cincinnati was higher, right? And this is just to make a statement. A lot has changed. Jags were the 4th best team in our eyes. And now you scroll down, and this is an entirely different picture. Now, at number 1, you have San Francisco, and Mark and I both are back in the bucket of choosing them as Super Bowl favorites. Behind them, you have the Eagles, then you got Dallas, you got Baltimore and Miami, you have the Lions, though there was some discussion about that one because of defensive issues. Kansas City, you got Seahawks at 8, Bills at 9, Texans at 10, Broncos at 11, big jump for them. And then Green Bay at 12, big jump for them.
So they went from Green Bay went from 30 to 12 in our rankings.
And honestly, I think they did a lot to earn it. The way they've been playing football the past 3 weeks has been nothing short of a miracle based off of how they were playing starting the season. They look like an entirely different team. Jags have seen some regression and might, struggle just because of injury. Rams are playing a lot better. Bengals have dropped. Any other you want to touch on here, Mark? I mean, I'm just going to kind of let people read through this. And, worst team now we think are the Patriots. I think they are actively just tanking for draft stock at this point.
I mean, we've got, the Rams at 14. A lot of injuries have obviously adjusted this. The Bears have climbed up to 24. But we got the Patriots and Panthers and Commanders holding it down at the bottom. The Titans have fallen. So, I mean, it's worth noting, John, like you said, a lot can change in this league in a short amount of time.
4 weeks. I mean,
4 weeks, and it's a
picture.
I'll give John credit too. He did not waver, has not wavered. He's believes in San Francisco to get it done. So that trophy, that Lombardi is still next to them on that icon. But I think the biggest thing John and I debated when we were creating this was where do you put Baltimore and Dallas, right?
Yeah.
So we have 3 NFC teams, Niners, Eagles, Dallas at the top of the league. And we think this, or I think this mostly, and I kind of convinced John. I think this because the NFC at the top just seems to be much better than the AFC at the top. Now, I think the AFC probably as a whole is more competitive. There's a ton of teams still fighting to get in, but the NFC has those top few teams, and you could even throw the Lions into that argument about, tipping which side has that heavier top. And the NFC is just loaded at the top of that side of the league, and the Ravens at 4, you could argue should be ahead of Dallas, maybe ahead of the Eagles if you want, but I have them below those 3 teams just because I think the NFC is.
Yeah, and Mark
that
let
much
me put
better.
them a little higher than Mark thought last ranking, so I kind of gave some ground there. And as much as I am a Dallas hater, I mean, you got to respect what they've accomplished so far this season. Also, really quickly, we did not recap our best bets. So, Mark, if you want to go and walk us through those real quick, we'll take a very brief look at what the playoff picture looks like right now, and then we'll wrap things up for this week. So
Let's just make it clear. All right. I will say it again. I'm 37-16 in my picks and best bets this year. Okay. That is against the spread. That's over unders. All right. That's no money lines. All right. So this week, we love the board. I love the board. It starts off with Patriots with a record breaking under of 30. Okay. Against the Steelers. That is the lowest we've seen this season. I think it's crazy that it's that low, but is it really that crazy? I think you look at the last few games, that's going under. The Lions, okay, in Chicago, 3-point favorite in the cocaine whites against Justin Fields, who ran the ball all over him a few weeks ago when they played. That won't be the case. The Lions will make adjustments. Neither team's going to be able to throw a ton, but I trust the Lions offense to be able to run the ball consistently, and Justin Fields will not be able to do that against the Lions defense. I love that one. I got Cincinnati as a 1-point underdog to beat the Colts. Since he's at home, they're coming off a win. I think they're starting to kind of rally around Jay Browning. So I think they get it done. The Raiders, 3-point underdogs at home against the Vikings, coming off of a bye. I think you'll see Devontae Adams get in the mix. I think you'll see them make some adjustments. And I don't trust the Vikings even getting Jefferson back to be able to protect Dobbs to get him the ball. And then last but not least, the Chiefs. They do not lose many games. They've lost 2 in a row. Mahomes against a rival quarterback in this league that we're going to see this rivalry continue through and through. But Mahomes will not lose 3 straight games. They win. They cover the 2.5 at Arrowhead Stadium against the Bills.
I like it. To recap mine, same thing. Lions in their ice whites, or as Mark calls them, the Coke whites, during a snow game in an outdoor stadium. I mean, the vibes are immaculate. I think the Lions come away with a win for that one. Big matchups, San Fran and the Seahawks. I tend to favor overs, so I went with San Fran Seahawks over 47. Raiders, I think, are going to have Josh Dobbs running for his life from a defensive perspective. I think they come away with that game. They win it. KC Bills defaulting to the same logic as San Fran Seahawks. I think it's going to be a big game, big rivalry, lot to play for. And so I think a lot of points are going to get scored with 2 stellar quarterbacks. So I like 47.5 for the over there. And then I like Green Bay to cover 7 points, which I'll have to be honest, that's the one I probably feel the least confident on out of these picks, but I think they can get it done. This feels like the Packers are really finding the rhythm with this young new team. So those are my best bets. And now, Mark, to wrap this episode up, let's talk about the playoff picture real quick. We were
Playoffs.
Mess around with the playoff machine, but that's just way too much at this
It's
point.
too early. It's too early still.
But right now, first seed in the AFC is the Miami Dolphins at 9-3. Then Baltimore's your second seed, playing the Colts at the 7th seed. Kansas City's your 3rd seed, playing the Cleveland Browns as the 6th seed. And then Jacksonville's your 4th seed, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers as your 5th seed. The 7th, 6th, and 5th seed on the AFC side of things don't feel like they are deserving playoff teams, and from my perspective. Like, I think that a lot of NFC teams could beat those 3 teams in a head-to-head matchup. Do you feel the same about that at this point in time, Mark?
I do. I do think that this playoff picture will be very different when we actually get to it in the next few weeks, because I don't think those teams, like the teams you just called out, I do think will expose themselves and lose games, and they will no longer be in that picture. So
But who's sneaking in, right? Because I'm thinking Buffalo, Denver, Houston. I think those are the teams we see.
those are the teams that are definitely looking to sneak in. You could even argue Cincinnati if they, if they keep playing the way they've been playing. They've been there, right? They have the pieces. Besides Burrow, they have the pieces that have all been there and done that. So you don't ever want to count a team like that out either.
Yeah, 100%. And then on the NFC side, I think this looks a little bit more like what reality is going to look like at the end of the season. You got Philly with the 1 seed, San Fran with the 2 seed, Green Bay with the 7th, Detroit with the 3rd seed playing Minnesota with the 6th, and then Atlanta with the 4th seed playing Dallas with the 5th. I think the biggest shakeup that you could expect to see here is Philly losing that 1 seed to San Fran, and the Lions potentially even bumping up to that 2 seed. Or Philly maintains that 1 seed, but San Fran loses their 2 seed and Lions bump up there. So Lions are gunning for the 2 seed. I really don't think, with the exception of the Rams and maybe Seattle, I don't think teams are really squeaking in here. I think this is, generally speaking, what the playoff picture is going to look like. The only team that feels a little fraudulent at this point in time in the season are the Vikings.
And you got to remember the Vikings still have to see the Lions twice. So, expecting them to lose both those games to Detroit, I feel like they would fall out and somebody else would climb in. Maybe a Rams team, maybe the Packers, right, at that spot instead. So it kind of depends on what's going to happen there. Crazy to see right now as it stands, 3 NFC North teams in.
Right. Especially for how bad the NFC North started the season.
Right.
These teams kind of finding their momentum a little bit. I mean, Chicago is not a bottom tier team anymore either. They're not good, but they aren't, complete trash. I mean, a lot can happen in the next 4 weeks. A lot will happen in the next 4 weeks. And this playoff picture, just like our power rankings, will probably look very different come end of the regular season. So that basically wraps up Practice Squad Pod episode 069. We appreciate everybody's attention. We do have merch. We post short form content on our social media throughout the week. So make sure to follow us on the socials. Make sure to check out the merch store. And if you have not subscribed to us here on YouTube yet, please do so. We hit 500 subscribers, and I will sing Higher by Creed on our TikTok.
I'll make a highlight of whoever or what team I feel like.
Got you.
And I'll have John watch that highlight and make sure he sings Higher. I also want to do a quick shout out for our Spotify listeners as well. And just kind of show some of the growth we've had here, because we started at the bottom with this podcast, and we've appreciated all the support and new people that we've had come and join us and listen to us talk ball and listen to us make picks and argue over Harbaugh and Stafford and God knows who else. But we had a 91% increase in listeners, 223% increase in streams. We had 260% new followers growth this year, and we had 319% increase in minutes created. So John and I have been working harder. We've seen more, fans, more views, more interest from that, and that's why we do it. We love doing this. We love football, and we love that other people love it as well.
Thanks a ton, Spotify listeners, because frankly, that's pure. You're strapping in for a hour plus long podcast. Like, those are the listener base on Spotify, probably our most loyal base out of all of the social media, because we don't do any short form stuff there. And so we greatly appreciate that. And if you are listening to us on Spotify, make yourself known. Shoot us a message on our Instagram or something like that, because we want to hear from you, and we frankly want to hear how we can continue to improve this podcast and entertain you guys, because that's what we're here for at the end of the day. So with that, we really appreciate your attention, and we will see you next week. Peace.